you work hard for your money, and you should make sure that you get protected. What's the number one thing you want to do? You want to work hard, but you want to get paid. You got to make sure that you have good language in an invoice or service agreement, whatever it is that you hand off to your client. There should be terms in there that, one, protect you to make sure that you get paid on time, and that there are consequences if you don't get paid on time, i.e. there should be an interest component that's allowed by law. If that's not in your service contract, if it's not on your invoice, you're doing yourself a disservice.
Welcome to the Royal Flush Podcast. My name is John Overy, the VP of Sales here at Royal Flush. In this podcast, we're going to discuss the ever-growing ins and outs of our state-of-the-art pipelining company here at Royal Flush. But more importantly, we're going to bring in local guests from the Rhode Island and Massachusetts area that ideally cover the three I's. We want to talk to interesting people that have interesting stories that spark an interesting conversation. In this episode, we speak to John La Terra Bellina, who's a local business lawyer here in Rhode Island. We cover what John feels are the three pillars of starting any business, the stigma around being a lawyer, and also John's Italian heritage. So have a listen. Hope you enjoy it. Stay tuned. Welcome everybody back to the Royal Flush Podcast. I have a very special guest and definitely the best dressed guest we've had so far.
Wow.
John La Terra Bellina, who is a business lawyer. And John, we've got a lot of questions today about business and law, and I've got a million questions for you. But before we start and get into your professional career and certainly what you excel at and some tips and advice and scenarios, let's start what we do with everybody. And I want a little bit more about your childhood, where you grew up, and tell me a memory that really brings you back to your childhood.
Sure. Well, listen, thank you for having me today.
Thank you for coming. We appreciate it.
Excellent. Well, listen, I'll give you that quick rundown. I'm from Pawtucket, Rhode Island. I was born and bred there, and I lived in a section called Fairlawn. Mm-hmm. And when I was there, I will tell you, mom and dad, dad's from Italy. He was born there, came here, met my mom on a cruise ship. And he was one of the attendants. She was one of the passengers.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And they bought a house in Pawtucket, and we've lived there. I've lived there until I was probably just before I got married. Okay. So, but I'll tell you, one of the best parts of living in Pawtucket, it was a tight-knit community, lots of kids on the streets all the time. I mean, you could pick up a stickball game, you could play a football game in 2 seconds. But one of my favorite memories is biking. We used to bike everywhere. Mm-hmm. And I remember I got this blue 10-speed bike when I was like 12, and met up with a few friends one day, and we decided, hey, let's go and see the Patriots at Bryant University.
Okay.
And
did you have any concept of how close that really was,
no
or
clue,
far?
No clue. No, like we had a general idea, and didn't tell anybody. Just three guys on bikes, and we biked up Route 7 and from North Providence through Smithfield, made it all the way there. Took us like 2.5, 3 hours on a road we should never have been on.
I'm sure it was 98 degrees too.
Of course,
right?
Yeah, it was a midsummer. It was hot. We got there. We ended up seeing like people like Tony Eason, and it was impressive to see the Patriots there. And then we biked home. What any kid would do nowadays, right? Not.
No.
People would be tracking us on iPhones. And can you imagine doing that? No way of communicating with anybody, out in nowhere. And parents had no clue where in the world.
When you came home, you would have the police at your house, because your
course.
parents would have a 5-alarm fire, a nationwide hunt. Every social media would have a picture of you like this. Totally. Missing, abducted,
Yep. Yeah.
Disappeared.
A John alert.
Yep.
They'd be looking for me.
That's funny.
Yeah.
So you know what? You mentioned the bike. So tell me about the bike.
Yeah, it was one. I'm not a bike enthusiast, but I will tell you, it was a 10-speed, had the double levers, like 1 through 5 and 6 through 10, and it had those rolled handlebars, which had to lean over, like as if you were some real bicyclist, and no helmet, of course, because that wasn't a thing to do. Safety wasn't the thing. Had a red water bottle. That was probably high-end at the time. Red plastic water bottle, which tastes plasticky when you put water in it.
Oh, definitely. That was no BPA free
back
then.
No.
That was extra BPA when they made it.
Hard-on plastic. Yeah.
I have a bike memory. So I had a red Huffy bike, 1-speed, and I think probably came from Benny's. Now, Kyle, did you ever? I don't think Benny's was even around. It probably closed down before you even really was a thing for us. But Benny's had a perpetual 365-day bike sale.
Yes.
Growing up as a kid. 365 bike sale. And the bike definitely came from Benny's. Anyway, this I beat the crap out of this bike, and my mom still had it until I was 21 when I moved out. Now, I didn't ride it since I was 8 or 9. I got many other bikes after that, but it was like I would go into the garage, and there was the red Huffy. And I've got pictures of it, and I remember that bike is burned into my memory, and I have great memories of riding on that thing.
I'll tell you, my bike was probably from Benny's as well, the one on Branch Avenue. And I will also tell you, when it arrived, it was a Christmas present, and my parents, my father, put a basket, picture this, a metal wire basket on the back of it. It was like you screwed it into the rear wheel, and it was like a basket on either side of the tire.
Like saddlebags for motorcycles.
Exactly. And he thought it was a good idea because if I fell, the metal would hit first. And I'm like, no way, take that thing off. I'm going to look like a fool amongst all my friends.
That's fantastic.
So that's my bike.
And then we have a slight connection with your heritage. I remember you telling me, obviously, you're Italian, and you've been to Italy, and you've gone back many times. So that is my favorite place I've ever been with my wife in my entire life. So tell me a little bit about your experience of traveling back and forth there. How often have you gone? Sure. What do you love doing when you've had your chance to go there? We hope you're enjoying this episode of the Royal Flush Podcast, but I wanted to take a minute just to tell you a little bit more about what we do at Royal Flush and how we can potentially help you solve big problems when it comes to your underground sewer lines. Simply put, here's the ask. If you have any issues when it comes to a backup, a slow drain, anything going on with your pipe underneath your building, your house, your apartment complex, your hospital, anything that has to do with an underground sewer line, give us a call at Royal Flush. We'd love the opportunity to come out there, inspect your line, and potentially offer you a permanent solution to solve your problems with our state-of-the-art epoxy pipelining technology. Now back to the episode.
So, we've, my dad side of the family is still there, actually, and I have a half-brother, sister-in-law, and 2 nieces, and I've also got, my dad is one of 9, so I've got numerous aunts, uncles, and cousins and second cousins. So they're from Sicily, which is that little island to the bottom of the
The old country.
Yep, and right at the southernmost tip. We would go like every 3 or 4 years, and from when I was a little kid up and until I went to college. I kind of took a break at that point because I was kind of, met my soon-to-be wife. We were dating at the time. And then, and then after I got married, my wife and I went there as part of our honeymoon. So we would tour. We've been to Venice, Rome, and Sicily, and we've had a blast. Every time we've gone there, it's always been, the environment there is just relaxed.
Oh, yeah.
Even though you might be in tourist traps, it's just a relaxed vibe. The food is always simple and great and delicious, and the people are welcoming. And then obviously when I go to see family, that's always a component of it. It's great to see everybody, And I'm not a fluent Italian speaker, but I, cobble through it as best I can.
Yeah.
I probably sound like a third grader just trying to.
Gotcha. Yeah.
I still can't conjugate verbs well.
Yep. My Italy story is, of course, the food. Obviously, it's like nothing else, but it's actually the wine. So I love alcohol, different types of things. More of a beer drinker, and my wife, like any kind of female, usually steered towards wine. I never really enjoyed it. Any wine I ever had, I didn't really feel that great drinking it. I didn't enjoy the flavor. I usually got a headache. But we're in Italy, and so we went to some vineyards, and of course, thus the saying, "When in Rome." We weren't in Rome, but when in Rome. And so I started trying some more wines, and I was like, this tastes very, very, very different. And it's as simple as, when I think of Italy and I think of food, the word we throw around the word organic, right? That means different things to different people, but usually, healthier, local grown, maybe less preservatives and chemicals. The food in Italy is as organic as you could organically think of in the entire world. So besides the country and the mountains and the soil, leads these people, even in an industry or a winery or a vineyard or even a restaurant, they're literally growing it and getting it from next door. And these wines tasted so different, and I knew it had to do with the chemicals and everything. And my story I like to tell is that we went to a vineyard, and it was a little old guy, family vineyard, probably maybe 100 acres. It was literally like him and his wife and his grandfather, and he gave us this beautiful tasting, and he was literally, Johnny, he was like, come, let me show you my grapes. Let me show you my wines. And he took us out into this field, and he's like, you see this grapevine? My great-grandfather planted this. It was 200 years old. And he almost started crying. He was so proud, right? In very, very broken English, but we could understand everything he was saying. he was so proud. He's like, my grandfather, and then me, and I'm here, and my kids, and this literally plant in the dirt was his entire life.
Yeah.
And that to me is like the epitome of if you have the chance to go to Italy or the countryside or meet the people.
Yep.
That's what it's about. That guy's day was making really good food, growing these grapes, making wine, and just making people happy.
It is amazing.
And there's very little place. I haven't been to Napa yet. I'm definitely gonna go. I'd love to go, but even then, I don't think the story can be anything like that. I think you can only get a story like that in Italy, right?
It's true. It's true.
So that's what I love about Italy.
And by the way, you probably don't know, but I didn't know you were into wine, but my father and I make wine.
Oh, really?
Yeah, yeah. Since I was a little kid, he's always made it. And usually, he would, in the beginning, he'd probably make like 50, 60 gallons, a full barrels. And then now we've downsized it a little bit, probably around 30 or so. But it's a red wine, and I will tell you, I do enjoy wine. I have to be careful, though. Like sometimes the preservatives or the sulfites that they put in them affect my stomach, and it bothers me. When I have a homemade wine, which does not have any of that, I have no problems at all. I can drink it 100%, no problem. And I find it tastes better.
Yeah,
it
does.
It's one of those things. And so, someday I'll share a bottle with you.
Oh, very nice. So is this something almost like a pastime that you and your dad have? And I'm sure you probably do it the same time every year.
Same time, September, it'll be starting. You go to the farmers markets, or in this case, you go down to just off Pleasant Valley Parkway in Providence. They've got the wholesalers there, and you can buy grapes by the crate. Some people do it by buying a juice that is really just a pre-squeezed grape already in a barrel. All you do have to do is add active yeast to it. My father still does it the old-fashioned way, which is buying crates of grapes, crushing them, and then pressing them, and then putting them in the bottles.
Very, very cool. How long does it take from, we'll say, production to drinking? What's that timeline?
You use September to December.
Okay.
Yeah. By December, you could have your first glass.
3-4
It's going to go through a
fermenting.
fermentation process, and by December, it's drinkable. In my opinion, by March and April, it's right where you want it to be, and then it just gets better with age.
Interesting.
Very good stuff.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So let's transition to your career, your professional expertise, and the lots of questions we have.
Sure.
So you're a lawyer.
Yes.
And I think you're a unique kind of lawyer, and specializing as a business lawyer. So let's start with, how did you decide to become a lawyer? What intrigued you about law? Kind of tell me like your education and when you said to yourself, I think I want to practice law.
Yeah. I think it was, I was at undergrad, and I was at Boston University. I was deciding what I was going to be doing going forward. I kind of was in the business field at that point. I had majored in economics and mathematics, and I knew I wanted to do something in the business line, but I was intrigued also because I just had a litigation matter in my personal life. And it was involving a motor vehicle accident, actually. I thought the law seemed interesting. It was something I wanted to explore. I didn't know which avenue I wanted to do. I thought it might be something with taxation. But I ended up going to law school at Roger Williams in Bristol. And when I got there, I ended up, you generally, when you study law, when you go to law school, it's just a hodgepodge of everything. You learn criminal law, constitutional law, business law, you name it. And at the end of the day, when you graduate, that's when you kind of really direct yourself as to which avenue you want to go down. And I frankly wasn't sure. I just wanted a job when I got out. And sure enough, the two places that offered me positions were litigation firms. And I joined one. And I will tell you, it wasn't something that I intended to do, but it was one of the best things I think that it could have happened to me, because getting a general concentration in something would have been helpful, but learning litigation is something that you put that in your tool chest. You can use it forevermore. You've got it. And there's a lot of lawyers out there that have no litigation experience. And I frankly believe that you're doing a disservice to your client, because if you don't know what's going to happen when your contract gets breached, what that's going to look like in a courtroom, how can you advise your client as to what's going to go wrong and what to expect?
Yeah.
Okay, and that comes with every facet of law. If you don't know what's going to happen at the end when you've got to push the envelope and address your concern and dispute it in a courtroom, if you don't know what happens there, they're not going to get good advice. So I did that for almost 7 years, where I practiced in the courtrooms in Rhode Island, all of them. A lot of my work was insurance defense. I was defending insurance companies.
Okay.
And so simply put, it could be a motor vehicle accident. It could be a injury, a work-related injury at a property site. It could be a malpractice claim. You might have been, you could be an accountant, do something wrong, commit an error or malpractice. We would defend you. And all your policies, everyone has an insurance policy for something. Homeowners, motor vehicle. I would be the attorney that gets appointed by the insurance company to defend you. And what we would do is it would put me in a courtroom every day. And so I went through a process where they give you the simple stuff, but then they work your way up to a trial and even to appeals courts. And then I did that for 7 years, but I learned towards the latter part, some of it was involving business law, and I was intrigued by it. And I happened to be at a firm, Orson & Brasini, a couple of attorneys that I knew that had just started off the year prior. They wanted to get a litigation guy in there. I came in, joined them, and since 2006, I've been there. I'm now partner. I'm actually the managing partner of the firm. And what we do is exclusively represent businesses from beginning till end. So I can start out your small business. I can help you through your process of maturing with drafting contracts for you, helping you out with employment disputes, helping you deal with customer issues, and then all the way to the point where hopefully you're a big operation and you want to sell out or acquire others and get even bigger. And then maybe there's a point when you want to retire and transition your business to another entity.
Yeah.
And then when there are tough times, we're there for you. So if you have to wind down a business, or maybe you have to go through an insolvency process, where the guys can walk you through it. But I like to think of us as from birth to death and everything in between. We can help you out from the business side.
Okay. So you had mentioned the courtroom, the experience in your two belt. As a lawyer, is the goal to be as positive or confident of the desired outcome as possible? Meaning, you said walk you down the path. If you don't know where you want to go or what you're trying to achieve, it's tough to get there. So how do you, tell me, that I can imagine this almost actually being a very psychological job, where you're talking with these business clients and you really have to understand what their goals are and what they want to achieve, and then help protect them or guide them to which one of those goals. So tell me kind of how, I'm sure your people skills have really changed over the years from being a 20-something-year-old young man into it. So kind of get me a little bit into that world.
Totally, yeah. I mean, I think a lot of times drafting up legal documents is important to understand what the goal is of the client. And so you're right. It definitely, my position has evolved over time, and my knowledge base has evolved. And one of the things is that, I'll give you an example. A client might come to me, be in the service industry, and might say, listen, I want to take on long-term clients today. And if I take on this particular long-term client, I want to do their work. I want to do it for the next 3 years. I want a contract to reflect those terms. That means I got to dedicate my time to this person. And if I do that, if they're going to take 20 hours a week of my time or my associate's time, then that time can't be dedicated to somebody else. So what happens if I now dedicate my time to that client? I refuse other work, but then this client bails on me after a year. What do? I've booked myself for the next 3 years. I've only get a year's worth of value, and then poof, they're gone. Well, in that case, I've advised clients. I said, listen, you've got to memorialize that in an agreement with the client that if they plan on leaving any time earlier than this, there are going to be consequences. And the consequences are going to be damages. And what you do is you memorialize those terms to say, listen, client, I'm willing to dedicate my time for the next 3 years to you. But if you end up leaving early, there's going to be an impact. And that is going to be money damages, which I'm going to be able to recover from you. And the reason why that matters is that it disincentivizes the client to just move on from you.
Sure.
There's going to be a consequence if they do so. Now, it doesn't mean that a client can't leave for legitimate reasons, a breach of contract, you failed to provide services. But if everything's going along as it should under the terms of the agreement, then everyone should be honoring it and living through it throughout the term of the agreement. And if you don't, guess where you're going to be? In a courtroom. And those words that were drafted in that agreement are going to be used as part of a complaint to enforce the terms. And it happens. Some clients just walk away and think that, well, I don't have to deal with them. No, we're going to be in a courtroom, and you're going to now have to explain to a judge why you shouldn't have to pay that money. And a lot of times they'll not have the answers or the evidence to support that. And that's where my clients get to enforce those money damages claims. So that's kind of understanding that tool of that knowledge and experience in the courtroom. You're implementing that into a document for a client to satisfy a goal. Otherwise, that client couldn't perform those services, couldn't do that type of contract, couldn't offer that to a client because they couldn't guarantee that they could be available for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
That's just one example.
Gotcha. Yeah. And then, so I think you could probably talk to me a lot about dues or things that people have done, but I'd like to think maybe you could talk about things that people should do or that they haven't done. And so I can imagine, even just a business like us, in that small business realm, whether you want to put a dollar amount or a people amount on that, we are very uneducated in the law and how to set up our business in a way that is beneficial, whether it be long-term goal, whether it be security, insulation, whatever it is, right? And so tell me, if you had a business like Royal Flush, and I was starting today, and me and you know each other, say, John, I want to start a business. I want to start Royal Flush. We've got this really cool state-of-the-art pipelining technology. What are the steps that somebody should go through? And how and when should they hire a lawyer? When do they need a lawyer? Take me through the infancy of a business and how that works.
Sure. So I will tell you, think number one, you get what you pay for. Okay. And
Kyle, we've said that thousands of times. You definitely get what you pay for.
It applies to every industry, and there's no difference in the law. And when you're starting out a business, I will tell you that avoid the online services. It seems like an easy solution. It seems like it's quick. It seems like it's inexpensive, and I'm telling you, you're getting what you're paying for there. So go to a good lawyer. There's tons of them out there in Rhode Island and Mass.
Let me stop you right there.
Yeah.
How to help define that for me? What is a good lawyer, and how do I know that I'm talking to a good lawyer?
Yeah. I think you want to make sure, one, experience matters. If you don't have the knowledge base, I don't think you could properly advise a client as to what's needed for their business. And a good lawyer has that background. So you want someone who's been in the industry for a while. You also want somebody who a considerable amount of their practice is dedicated to business matters. Some general practitioners, although very capable, might just not have had the experience enough to encounter as many business matters as someone who does it all day long.
Gotcha. That makes complete sense.
Those are the things I would look for, and look around. Like right now, online services reviews matter. And how people interpret others, and obviously referrals are the best. Anybody who's used that particular attorney in the past and has a good recommendation is probably somebody you should go and visit. So once you do visit somebody, an attorney, my recommendation is, and it's not just the attorney. You need, in my opinion, you need 3 key people in your back pocket. You need an attorney, you need an accountant, and you need an insurance agent. All of those should be individuals, not anything that you're doing online. No one should be picking out their own insurance policies based upon price. Because I think when you're creating a company, you're doing it to protect you. Because here's the deal. A corporation or any type of corporate entity is your last line of defense. So if something goes wrong and you're making widgets and somebody gets injured or dies as a result of one of the widgets that you made, and they sue you, if you do not have a corporate entity, they're suing you personally. That means all of the money you've ever made is gone. Your house could be compromised.
All your personal assets.
All your assets gone and compromised. But if you have a corporate entity, and the corporate entity is the one who created that widget, then if they're going to sue anybody, and you've drafted everything properly, then they're going to be suing the entity and going after the company's assets. Well, what does the company own? Doesn't own your house. Doesn't own your cash in the bank. Doesn't own your car. The corporation usually owns some cash in the bank that it has in a corporate bank account, maybe some tools and equipment, and desks and chairs and computers, and that's it. Okay? But that's your last line of defense. What's your first line of defense? A good insurance policy. So get a good insurance rep to sit down with you, understand what your business is, and then recommend a good policy and any possible add-ons that you need to that policy, anything that's going to protect you in every possible way. Because I'm going to tell you, if you think you're going to go online and pick a policy and understand, which endorsement you need, you're not going to know.
Yeah, you're not
And
gonna
by the way, you're going to be motivated by price, not by what's there to protect you. And then the accountant's there because the accountant wants to make sure that at the end of the day, you are taking advantage of all the tax benefits that you can, and make sure that you select the right corporate entity based upon a tax perspective, and also understanding what's going to happen with those proceeds when you put them in your pocket. How are those going to be taxed, and what type of impact it's going to have upon you. So I usually, when we meet with clients, we sit down with them, understand what their business is. We usually take them through a questionnaire that we've prepared to try and tease out all the potential problems and see what they need going forward. Do you need a contract? Are you going to be handing people an agreement in order to start out their operation? Are you going to be just simply handing out invoices? And what do you want, what type of language in there do you want there to protect you, to make sure you collect all the money that you worked hard for to earn? And then one of the initial things is, who's going to own the business? Is it one person? Is it many people? What are they going to be? What will be their percentages? Is someone going to be the majority owner? Are they all going to be equal? If so, you've got to draft the right agreements for them. So depending on the company, you might have a set of bylaws or an operating agreement. That agreement should reflect to let every owner know what their rights are. And I will tell you, if you do something online, you're probably not going to have the right documentation or wording there to protect everybody fairly. And that's important.
Yeah. So now I can imagine, depending on the scope of the customer you have, in many businesses, we'll certainly say small businesses, those are things that are, in my opinion, are people thought of 5, 10, 15 years down the line. They're not very immediate, right? And I can imagine that those are some hiccups that you come into when you're trying to get somebody to understand, we need to have this in place for the what ifs and whens. But a lot of people have a hard time understanding and thinking that. So tell me some of the challenge that you come across, or somebody be like, oh, you know what, we'll deal with that later. I just need to figure out, am I doing an LLC or an S Corp or C Corp? That's really all I want today. And so I can imagine you probably have a lot of stories of helping somebody, maybe giving a piece of advice and then coming back and like, okay, this is a speed bump that we should have addressed.
Sure.
Is there anything that, maybe something in your mind of a story that's come across like that you can kind of recall?
Yeah. I'll give you one example amongst corporate owners, and then another one that deals with the insurance policy. But I'll tell you, owners I've had in the past come to us and say, listen, we've gone to one of those online services. They create the corporate entity for you. So boom, it's created, 2 seconds. The problem is it's doing all the rest. So for example, the bylaws of a corporate entity. Think of that like the Constitution for the country. It spells out who the president is, what the powers are, the branches of government, who can do what. That's what the bylaws do. They tell you who the officers are, what's an owner, what are their rights, how do you deal with profits and losses, when do you get to take money out. All things that matter.
You can create those however you see fit, right?
Correct.
It's just more almost that act of putting it down, probably in a legal term, but physically putting it down on paper.
Exactly. And it's important because that's what you look toward if there's ever a dispute down the line. But this documentation, after you create the corporate entity, that last line of defense that I said, that helps you from the outside world. Somebody trying to sue the company or you personally, that's your line of defense.
Yeah.
But those internal documents, that's to deal with all of the owners. Okay, what do we do when this happens? When somebody wants to leave, or someone wants to lend money to the company to keep it operating. When do they get paid back? Yep. These are important things because somebody might have more money in this and might have more skin in the game. How do we treat everyone equitably? Yep. And we've had people come in, and in one particular instance, they were partners. There was the documentation that they obtained from the online service, but at the end of the day, nobody signed anything. So the agreement was essentially ineffective. And guess what? They had a fight. They were disputing as to who was going to get paid what. One particular owner had lent a considerable amount of money, and his opinion was that he should get paid first, every dollar.
Gotcha.
The other partner, who had not contributed a lot of money to the company, felt like as the dollar came in, they should be splitting it equally, and they'll pay off the money to the other owner when it was available. And now they have a dispute. What's going to dictate? Who's going to say? And guess what? Unfortunately, when you don't have a set of bylaws, you now have to rely upon what exists on the laws in the state that you incorporated the business. So in this case, it was Rhode Island. Rhode Island has its own act. It is an act that governs. In the event you don't, you rely upon these particular sets of laws.
Okay.
And these laws govern what your bylaws will do. And as you can imagine, they're just kind of real simple and basic. And sometimes that's going to make one side happy and another side not, okay? And I can't necessarily say that it's always going to be equitable. And at the end of the day, guess what ends up happening? They had a fight. The company essentially was at a stalemate, which was a successful operation. And then at the end, both sides lawyered up, one attorney for one guy, another attorney for another side, and they fought. Who made money? Lawyers.
The lawyers.
Yep.
They both lost.
Who lost? Both of the owners. And if they instead had properly drafted documents years ago,
Yep.
signed them, because that's what's going to happen. If you're left to your own devices, you're going to make mistakes. That's a human error. That's a human component. If you hire a professional to organize an entity for you, they're going to make sure it's done. They know the pitfalls that occur.
Yeah.
It's going to end with a signed document, and then you guys are going to take it from there. And in that case, that's a big mistake, because that was unnecessary money that they paid to have a dispute. And at the end of the day, both lost.
Yeah.
So it's smart to get it done right. Another story that I want to share with you is insurance-based. Had a client come in, brand new, came in to me and said, listen, simple operation, cleaning houses. And she said that she got her own insurance policy. And I said, oh, that's great. She goes, listen, I got sued. I've got a nice house that I take care of. They had this completely brand new marble master bathroom completed, and I put a solution on that stained all of the marble, okay, to the tune of tens of thousands of dollars, okay, in damage. And I mean like $50,000, $60,000 in damage. And she said, I don't have anything. I don't have any. And I said, well, do you have a corporate entity? She's like, no, but I have this insurance policy. And an insurance policy is a nice start, okay? But when she showed me the insurance policy, she also showed me the denial letter from the insurance company. And apparently she filed a claim. The insurance company said no. And we took a look at it. And one of the key things is that, she didn't have the right endorsements there. If she had sought the help of an actual insurance agent who would have been familiar with her business and would have understood what she needed, she probably would have paid another $100 a month in order to get the type of coverage that she really needed, which would have protected her against an incident like this. Instead, that particular client ended up having to seek the counsel of a personal bankruptcy attorney and file personal bankruptcy because she was getting a judgment against her for $50,000, $60,000.
Wow.
And all could have been prevented if she had the right policy in place. Also could have been protected if she had a corporate entity. Simple, and I'm, lawyers charge various amounts, but I'm going to tell you, at the end of the day, between that and fees, maybe you spend $1,000 when you start it.
Sure.
And then that's it. At the end of the day, if you maintain the company, maybe you spend a couple $100 a month, a couple $100 a year. That is your investment for an ultimate protection.
Yeah.
And she just didn't have it. And it's a shame.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Why do you think there is a fear or a misperception of the value that a lawyer brings? I'm sure we hear lawyer jokes.
Sure.
What do you think? Where do you think that stems from, as somebody who's in that field every day?
Yeah. Well, I think it's in some instances, a lot of our work is not basic set fee based. Where you say like, here, $200 and I'm going to hand you the widget. I mean, that is the best thing. A lot of our work doesn't turn into material product. It's a service industry. So I think people are concerned because they hear, oh, this person charges X number of dollars per hour. And they can't even give me a firm commitment as to exactly what that's going to cost. They give me these ranges.
Yep.
And that's intimidating. I mean, just as a consumer, when a service provider comes to my home to provide a service and they give me a ballpark and it ranges from, $3,000 to $4,000, I get nervous. I want to pin them down. I want to know definitely what I'm going to pay for these things. But sometimes there's work that we do that I just don't know which direction it's going to go. And litigation is tough.
Sure.
Litigation could be terribly costly, and it could, I mean, sometimes there are cases where it could be $100,000 before you even get, just to get yourself to the courtroom steps for the trial, 2-3 years down the line. But there are smaller things that lawyers do, like creating a corporate entity, which you can get a finite number from lawyers. And I know a lot of lawyers that'll say, listen, I charge X to create the corporate entity, you pay for the filing fee. And I think that some people are surprised even when they come to our office. Geez, I just didn't know it was that simple and it was that basic of a cost. And at the end of the day, I see it as being an insurance policy. It's your second insurance policy.
Yep.
Your first is the one you get through your insurer, but your second is that corporate entity that you have somebody established for you. So lawyers do get a bad rap when it comes to costs. I just think it's that clients and the general public aren't advised enough as to what the real costs are for the small or medium-sized business owner. Yeah, I will tell you, if you heard stuff from the media or online, you'll see articles about lawyers going to court in these big matters and charging six figures. They're probably legitimate costs and they're legitimate matters which require those types of expenditure, but your small, medium-sized business doesn't have that type of exposure.
Yeah. I hope you're enjoying this episode of the Royal Flush Podcast, and I just want to take a minute to explain to you the importance of a camera inspection and how it works within what we do here at Royal Flush. If you've ever wondered what's going on inside your underground sewer line, we have the technology to do just that. If you've ever experienced a slow drain, God forbid a backup, and God forbid any sewage coming into your home, we at Royal Flush have state-of-the-art camera equipment to take a look down your pipe to diagnose the problem and understand better what's going on. The analogy I like to use is going to the doctor for a broken bone. A doctor would never prescribe any medicine or certainly give you a cast without doing an x-ray on your bone to understand if it's broken. The camera inspection is going to do the same exact thing. That's going to allow us to look inside the pipe, diagnose and inspect what's going on, and from there offer you a solution. I have an exclusive offer for you. If you mention this Royal Flush Podcast, we'll offer you the camera inspection free of charge. Enjoy the rest of the episode. Hope you like it. If you could scream from the rooftops, right, and you've got 10,000 businesses in front of you, what are the things that you would love to say, hey, listen, I think besides the hiring a lawyer and getting an accountant and getting insurance, these are the things, maybe 2 or 3 things that I think maybe 95% of the business maybe aren't even thinking about. What are some 2 kind of subcategories that anybody who's got a business really should be like, oh, I've maybe thought about it, heard about it, but I don't really have something like that. What are some other things?
Yeah, I'd probably say one of them is loan documentation. You can have a lawyer put together a simple loan for you as a small business owner and have it memorialize what you lend to your company. So I'll give you an example. A lot of small businesses don't have any loan documentation for their operation. So they might start the business off, and then 3 months into it, they've got to pay this bill for the company. And you know what they do? They raid their personal bank
take it out of their checking account, right?
And they dump it into the company.
Yep.
When you do that, that's an equity contribution, okay? Now, if you memorialize it the right way with a loan document, and it says that I just gave $10,000 to the company, and the company has to pay me back with interest, that's the right way to do it.
Yeah.
It protects your interest. It gives you a higher priority as a secured party if you do it the right way. Otherwise, you're just last in line when you're kicking money into the business, when you just raid your bank account and put it into the company. And it's not that every time you make a loan, you've got to write up a document. That's not how it works. What you do is we actually do what's called a general demand note, where you draft up a document and say, listen, at any given point, John La Terra Bellina can loan up to $100,000 to this company and to be expected to be paid back at 5% interest per year, okay? And then, let's say next week we need money and I got to drop 10 grand in, I'll drop the 10 grand in. And then a year later, if I get paid back or sooner, I'm going to take it back plus interest out of the company. Why? That's money you deferred. It could have been making interest on your own investments, but instead you put it into the company. Why should you take a loss, number one? Number two, if let's say I have many partners and we're sitting there and I'm the one kicking in the money, why shouldn't I get some return on my money?
Yeah.
Otherwise, the company would have had to take out the loan. So every owner should make sure that they have a loan document available for the owners to contribute. Another thing is that how are you going to interact with your clients? You work hard for your money, and you should make sure that you get protected. And what's the number one thing you want to do? You want to work hard, but you want to get paid.
Mm-hmm.
You got to make sure that you have good language in an invoice, in a contract, or service agreement, whatever it is that you hand off to your client. There should be terms in there that, one, protect you, to make sure that you get paid on time, and that there are consequences if you don't get paid on time, i.e. there should be an interest component that's allowed by law. And if that's not in your service contract, if it's not on your invoice, you're doing yourself a disservice. Because sometimes you might say, well, John, I'm probably never going to collect the interest. That's okay. It's a piece of leverage, though, against that client. You can waive it. You can collect it. You can use it in any way you want. But if you don't have it there in writing, then it doesn't exist. And so that's important. And a third thing I would say is, if you do have a contract with customers, you should, or vendors for that matter, you should make sure the agreement has an arbitration clause. A lot of time, a clause like that is beneficial because litigation is terribly costly. I referenced earlier that you could spend $100,000 just getting yourself to the courtroom steps. That's not even litigating the matter. That's literally just 2 to 3 years to lead up to getting to courtroom. And that's costly and time consuming. And a lot of times you can get rid of a lot of business disputes with a simple arbitration process. You spell it out in the terms of a paragraph or two in an agreement, and it says, listen, if we ever have a fight, we don't go to court. We only resolve our disputes with arbitration. And there are services out there available where you can agree that this particular service provider, one of them's the AAA, American Arbitration Association, they're throughout the country and international as well. They have rules and they have a process, which is a lot of it's online. A lot of this can be remote, but you can make your way through a dispute within a year's time. That's like a third of the time you could expect if traditional litigation, and sometimes a third, if not less, of the cost.
Yeah. So define arbitration. I know arbitration as a baseball fan. If anybody knows, the guys heading into free agency, or certainly, unfortunately, if you've known anybody who's been divorced, they might have gone through a form of arbitration. So tell me what that actually really is and how that would work, or what that would look like. Two people sitting with somebody in between saying, tell me about that.
Yeah. So it's kind of like a mini relaxed courtroom. Whereby you guys can agree upon an arbitrator. If not, you can have one randomly selected through a process. But at the end of the day, it is usually an attorney or a former judge who is familiar with your industry. Okay. And let's say you're in the widget industry, and you're having a dispute about, I sold you widgets and you didn't pay me, and you said there was something wrong with them, that's why you didn't pay me. So now we're having a fight. And we claim there's a mutual breach. That arbitrator, who's maybe a practicing lawyer who's familiar with the widget industry, gets selected by us. She or he then kind of walks us through a process of scheduling what's called the discovery process, where the parties exchange information. And they usually dedicate a few months to that and say, listen, for the next 3 or 4 months, you guys exchange information, documents, or written questions and answers. And then after that, you guys can do a few depositions, which means you might get to ask other people questions, fact evidence, with a court or a stenographer taking that information down. And then we'll pick a hearing date. But a hearing date is essentially your little arbitration trial. And you'll come to my office, or we'll go to a mutually acceptable place, and I will listen to the evidence. And each side will present their case. Well, here's Bobby. Bobby, let me ask you some questions about the case. And then the other side will do the same thing with Sally. And they'll get their information out, and they'll present a bunch of documents to the arbitrator. And then the arbitrator will then leave. And then, weeks later, we'll come out with a written decision. That written decision is your decision. It is just like a jury or a judge rendering a decision for you.
Interesting.
And all sides live by that.
Okay. Is the bigger picture goal of that is to, quote unquote, split the middle, be as fair as humanly possible to both sides?
Nope.
No.
It could be one side totally benefits and the other side totally
Okay.
loses. It is not like a mediation.
Okay.
An arbitration is really, think of it as courtroom, but more relaxed. It's not as formal.
Yep.
It's quicker, and it as a result usually ends up being less costly for both sides.
Gotcha.
As far as litigation costs are concerned. Now you could lose and be on the hook for $1 million judgment. Then you're on the hook for it. That it is what it is. Mediation is different too. By the way, sometimes we often suggest with the arbitration clause that there be an initial time that the parties try to mediate the matter. And if they can't mediate it, they go to arbitration. A mediator is different. Mediator is where similar set of circumstances with that same example, but you might get an independent, lawyer or former judge who will sit there and make an attempt to try and bring the sides together.
Yep.
Maybe come to a mutual agreement whereby one side pays something and the other side's willing to accept something.
That
It's
give and
far
take.
less. Right.
That back and forth.
And at the end of the day, that's really quick and hopefully incredibly less costly. But those are the things you need to do if you're a small business owner is to, you want to minimize your exposure because paying for a lawyer at the end of the day is going to be a lot more expensive than if you had just had something drafted. For example, a set of bylaws or a contract that protected against these disputes going to court. Paying to have that type of work done in the beginning is going to save you tons of money in the future.
Yeah. So this could be a wording or phrase. So then I think the goal of a lawyer might be to help plan and eliminate the reaction. Would that be fair to say?
Sure.
The more that we plan and put things in place, that when an issue arises, the reactionary cost is probably going to be potentially far less.
Correct.
But the impact on everybody in that business can be far less. And what we'll do is we'll always revert back to what we put in place and use those as the declaration or the amendments and how we're going to handle this.
Exactly.
Gotcha. Okay,
Yeah.
that makes a lot of sense.
It helps out. And, listen, I know people get intimidated by the initial cost of doing these things, drafting a contract or drafting an agreement. But I'm going to tell you, just picture where you're going to be 5 years from now if you are in the middle of a courtroom fighting over it.
Yep. What we always try to do is, again, cost. Let's just say it's $10,000, right? Depending on who you are in any walk of life, $10,000 can be an extremely ton of money. It can be no big deal, right? But if you're going to have your business hopefully for a long time or maybe 30 years, drafting these bylaws or these plans are really going through, hey, John, let's check off every box we can. That $10,000 initial investment over 10, 15, 20, 30 years really ends up being $100, $1,000 a year. And so we always try to justify, if more people looked at the long-term planning effect, and sure, it's an initial cost, but the benefit over that time, you just extrapolate it out over time.
Right.
It's real. The cost is real. We're talking nickels,
Exactly.
pennies on the dollar. You're going to end up spending more on lunch over the next 20 years than you are on the lawyer fees to draft up the proper legal documents.
Right. If you want to keep dumping Drano down the drain every other week to address your backup issue, you can do that.
Yep.
It's going to add up.
Yeah.
And you can hire the guy to go and grind out the roots and spend a couple of grand there every other year, and that's fine. Or you go to Royal Flush and get it done right once.
Absolutely. Great analogy. What I like to ask people this way, what gets your juices flowing, right? So you've been a lawyer for how many years now?
Since 1999.
Okay. So
So
24 years.
24.
So a new client comes in or a case or, what really, when you look at it, like this is exciting. Is it something new that you haven't done? Is, for better or worse, I'm sure money tied to things gets things excited. This is a large volume case. Maybe it can benefit personally or for the business, right? We're going to get some income. What really gets you like, hey, this is something I really love doing? Like,
Sure.
Get your juices pumping.
I'll tell you, I don't know if it's just one thing, but the fact that this line of business that I'm in, I get to meet a lot of different people who work in a lot of different industries, and I get to learn about everything they do. And learning something new is always exciting for me. And if I had to say there's a couple things that really get you going, it's probably working on a matter and putting your client in a position that they get that leverage against the other side. You know, you discover a fact about a matter, or you conduct a deposition with the opposing party, and you pin them down on something that really hurts their case and helps your client out. And then you're able to use that piece of information, whether it's that evidence or that transcript from the deposition, and use it to resolve the matter. That is huge because
gotcha.
Right. I have to add value to my client's matters, and if I don't add value, then what's the purpose of me? But all my clients want to do is get out of their dispute with as little damage as possible. Okay, and hopefully, if they're seeking money, get some beneficial gain out of it. And my job is to give them that advantage. And when I find that piece of evidence or I gather something that benefits them and gives it that leverage, that is a great ad. And sharing that with the client and then actually seeing it materialize, into a resolution. That's huge. Because a lot of my work is a lot of preparing for trials and preparing for disputes or anticipating what needs to go into an agreement. But the goal is to avoid the litigation.
Never do it.
Yeah, I don't want to go to a courtroom for a client because that's putting them at risk. Things can happen in courtrooms that you can't explain. You might think like I've got the best set of evidence, I've got the law on my side, and you might get those 6 people in that jury box who just don't like your client, and you lose. Yeah. And that's a big risk. So you got to be careful with that. And but the job is to get the resolution for the client. And if I can add value to the file, that's the best.
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. So in your 24 years, are you at a point now where you're looking at everything and you say to yourself, I know what's going to happen? And how often does that happen? Or you're looking at something and say, I was 99% sure we were going to resolve in this, and I'm looking today and said, I would have never thought this would have happened. How often now do those scenarios happen?
I would say probably, if I had to put a number on it, 70% of the time to 80%, I know what's going to happen. I can anticipate what's going to be the end result. Whether or not the client wants to take my advice or listen to the reality is up to them. I try to be convincing. Sometimes I have to take a slow approach. It depends on the client. Some clients are very receptive to my recommendations. Sure. Some of them, it takes a little coaxing and some time. Sometimes people need time. They just need things to set in, and then they realize where it's going. The other 30 to 40% still exists where
you still get caught out of the blue, shocked.
Blown away. I don't know what a judge on any given day is going to decide on a particular motion. I don't know what a judge or jury is going to say about a particular case. And we've had instances where even matters that I was tangentially working on. I've been through trials where I've seen the jury do something the complete opposite of what myself and everyone in the courtroom thought was going to happen.
The OJ
case. Things like that. We've had matters where there was a particular instance years ago. I was a young lawyer, and we thought a case was going to go in one direction, okay? And if you'd asked me at the end of the case, just when the jury got the case, what direction it was going to go in, I would have said all day long it was going in A, okay? No way was it going to go in B. If you asked the clerk and the bailiff who were in the courtroom what direction, they were going to say A. No way it was going to go with B. Jury comes back, B. And sometimes you can explain it, sometimes you can't. And it's those things that blow you away. Like, how did we all see it? It was definitely A.
Sure.
Everybody saw it. But those 6 people, I'll tell you one thing about a jury. One thing you have to be careful about is that people can be easily influenced. You even see it in our politics and online social media. It takes one person
to change the minds of many.
Yep. One.
Yep.
You sitting in a civil, I say 6 because civil matters have 6 jurors, whereas criminal matters have 12. you got one person who's strong-willed, authoritative,
Yep.
impressive upon others, and the other 5 can just be not interested, could be pushovers, could just be willing to just be passive, and they get convinced by that one individual which direction to go in. And remember, jurors are not there because they want to be there.
Yes.
They're there because they have to be there. Okay? All they're thinking about is, I want to get the heck out of here.
Yeah.
Okay? And so you eating up a week of their time and now giving them as much time as they want to get this done, they're not there like, let me spend another week here. They want to get out in a few hours.
Yep.
And if you tick them off, if your lawyer wasn't as impressive, if you had an attitude when you were on the stand, that could play against you. And it's a big risk that people take. And those are the times when I still don't know what to expect when you go into a courtroom, because you don't know how it's going to play out.
Fascinating.
You know, and it's really, you might have all the law and all the facts in your
And
favor.
all the evidence.
But then somebody just ticks everyone else off, and that one person on the juror is convincing enough to the others that it goes in the other direction. And you lose.
Well, you're so right about. I've actually never had jury duty, so hopefully I don't have to go because I don't want to. But we as people judge everything without even realize we're doing it, and so the presentation of the defendant and the lawyer and the close and the vocabulary and the demeanor and how they're right. These are all things that psychologically we all are doing without even realizing it. I could only imagine being in the position to judge or give a piece of information. You have such a predetermined disposition about something one way or another before you even hear any of the facts. It's a really, really fascinating dichotomy of how that would work. And so I'm sure as a lawyer, not in the criminal end, but even that, there's ways to, I think there's a reason called presenting the facts and information for a reason, right? It's not called giving it, you're presenting it to the people, and how you do that in your craft is very, very interesting.
Yeah, you want to let the story might be the same, okay? But you want to have it read in a way that it gets into the minds of the jurors from your perspective.
Yeah.
Okay. And the facts. I will tell you, a lot of the cases that we have, the facts are generally accepted by both sides, but there might be a few different interpretations of a couple of facts, and you want to make sure the jurors see it from your perspective or your client's perspective. And I will tell you, you'd love to get into the minds of every juror, wouldn't you? Because that's where you win.
Yeah.
And one of the, some of the lawyers believe that you really get that opportunity when you go through the voir dire process. That's when you interview, essentially, the jurors to make sure you have a fairly seated jury pool that is without any bias or minimal bias if possible. And you ask them questions that hopefully you can gain those little nuggets as to which direction juror one might be favoring.
Give me some instances of those.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. I mean, it depends on the type of case. You might want to see, are there prejudices against, if your matter involves insurance, have they had bad experiences with insurance companies? Did they ever file a claim? As a result of the claim, did you have a good result or a bad result? And if you have somebody have a bad result, well, which side are you on? Are you on the side that you want to see that there's an actual benefit from getting someone who's going to decide in an insurance company's favor or against them? And if that's your topic, if your topic is, little Johnny had some issue with the school department. Okay. How do people feel about school systems? What do you think about teachers? I have teachers in my family. I love teachers. I hate teachers. I hate administration. I love administration. And that might play into, do I have kids? I don't have kids. I love kids. I don't love. Those types of things might play into how a prospective juror might be leaning. It's not going to mean it's the end all and be all. But you're hoping to see if you can get as many. Frankly, you want to get people on the jury who you believe are going to side with your client.
Yes.
And frankly, I think some people maybe put maybe too much emphasis on it. But you definitely you got to take advantage of every component of the trial. And you want to start off in the beginning, which is the voir dire, and hopefully get as many favorable people on the jury. And then the next phase is present your case in the best way that benefits your client. And then hopefully you close out with a strong closing that ties it all together.
That final stamp on
Yep.
me persuading you.
Exactly.
Really, really interesting. Let's gear towards wrapping this up and a couple other
Sure.
questions for you. So what's next for you personally? You've been a lawyer for 24 years. You're at a firm, obviously, that seems that you really enjoy in this partnership. Do you want to do this to your last dying breath? Do you want to retire in Italy?
Yeah.
Do you want to start your own thing? Tell me what you want to do.
Yeah, no, I think, I've been the managing partner since the beginning of this year for the firm. So we've got 3 offices. We've got, I think, 16 lawyers now and about almost like 15 staff people. And it's a challenge. It's something I enjoy, though. I love the job that I have because the different clients that I get to meet and the different types of work that I get to do and matters that I work on. I also enjoy our staff. We've got a great group of people to work with, and we've done our best to see to it that our firm has a family mentality. Because listen, you spend a lot of time at work.
Yeah.
Here you're dealing with these people. You see these people sometimes more than you see your own family.
Definitely.
And or sometimes they are your family. But as a result, you want to make sure you're in an environment where it's conducive to you having long-term longevity at your business, and that's my goal, is to make sure everybody enjoys working here, that they want to work here, and hopefully it's the last place that they'll ever work. And that's my goal for myself and for my fellow attorneys and staff people. I'd like to see that happen. In the meantime, I think we're in, we actually have an operation which deals with 2 sides of the economy. We deal with businesses all day long. We also deal with entities that are in trouble. So I get to see both sides of an economy. When things are bad, our insolvency business picks up. When things are good, our corporate and transactional business picks up.
Yep.
And then when it's kind of in between, they're just kind of balanced. And so I can see a long time operation of this business to be multi-generational.
Yeah.
And that's the goal.
Okay, that sounds great. And then I think kind of maybe almost a 4-phase last question.
Sure. 4 phase. Wow.
Yeah, 4-phase last question. How can people get in contact with you if they want some business advice or starting a business, they're in a business, how can people contact you to inquire about your services?
Yeah, the best is set up an initial consultation with us. That's something that we just do free of charge. We sit down. We can do it on Zoom or over the phone, whatever means are best, but they contact us at the office. Our number is 401-223-2100. They could also go to our website, www.orsonandbrasini.com, and they can schedule a meeting, an appointment with us. And then one of the attorneys or myself will sit down with you, get an idea of what your needs are, and at that point we usually do a follow-up and give you a plan or recommendation of what we'd recommend.
Okay. And we kind of covered the 3 main things in a couple of subpoints, but what are kind of your 3 or 4 main asks or recommendations to people in the business world that they really should get in place to protect themselves? Kind of recap that quickly.
Yeah, I would definitely, sit down with a good attorney, get yourself a good accountant, and get yourself a good insurance representative. That's key. Those 3 individuals are going to be critical to you starting off in the right way. And then make sure that when you do start that business, you make sure you have all the bells and whistles. You're obviously going to create those articles, you're going to get those filed, you're going to get a set of bylaws or an operating agreement, and then get that document together for whether it's an invoice or a contract or a service agreement. You get that drafted right off the bat. Then you've got your arsenal for operations. And if you plan on lending money, which I guarantee you will, put a loan agreement together for the business. And then you can start yourself going.
Gotcha. All right. And then our last question we ask everybody, in your wise years of wisdom now, if we'll say not the 12-year-old John who's riding the bike, but maybe 18, 19-year-old John who was maybe going to college and not sure what the hell he wanted to do, what advice would you have for your younger self and tell him?
Yeah, I would say you've got to do something that you do well and enjoy. I kind of think they usually go hand in hand. If you enjoy, playing with math, great. Do something in the math industry or something that has to do with numbers. If you enjoy reading and writing, find something where you can find a career that will incorporate your reading and writing abilities. Because and whatever that is, science, you name it, whatever, or if hands-on.
Yep.
If you enjoy, tinkering with electricity, then you should look towards being an electrician or an engineer, whatever the case may be. But whatever it is, make sure it's something that you enjoy doing and excel at. Because remember, your career, hopefully it's going to be long, and you want to make sure it's going to be something that you enjoy doing. You're going to have days where you're going to be miserable, and things will catch up with you, and you're going to have those challenges. But in the long term, those are going to be few and far between if it's something that you enjoy and do well.
Fantastic piece of advice.
Yep.
So let's wrap it up there. John, thank you very much for your time and your wisdom. My hope is that anybody listening to this who is interested in starting a business, as big or small, has been running a business for 30, 40, 50 years. If you don't have some of these things that John recommended, look into them. Hire a good quality lawyer, maybe somebody that's personally recommended. Get these things set up. You will not regret it. And in the end, it will be beneficial for you personally in your business and protect you, which is in life, we want to be as protected as possible. So thanks for listening. Again, Royal Flush Podcast.